Hi, welcome back to the Always Write podcast. I'm author Karisa DeLay.
And I'm Jaime Vendera.
If you're watching, it's hysterical to see what is in the frame right now because Jaime has got all his little buddies with him.
Well, I got Maul, Paul. I am kind of from the South. I got Junior. I'm going to keep him. I got Lil Junior, and I got Sally Mae. So I got the whole family here. So I'm not short on water.
Oh my gosh. Do you have all this filled up, or did you just bring them for me?
I just did it to be me. But could you imagine with the JDHD cartoon if you had all 5 of these in there?
As like little characters? Man.
We would have fun.
We'll need to talk to Rachel about drawing that for you.
Speaking of which, right before we started this, Krista said, I'll be back in a second. And it was more like 113 seconds. I know because I was going 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm surprised it didn't drive you nuts in the other room.
Well, I couldn't hear it. I was in the other room and the door was shut and I had the window open and I could hear outside. So
okay.
I was listening to your...
All right.
Today, so, Jay, do you know what we're talking about today?
I think we're talking about finding an agent.
Do I need an agent? Yeah, basically. Yeah. Do I need an agent?
I thought I did. I mean, I really did back in the beginning because I was trying to tackle one of the main publishers and get Raise Your Voice signed and looking at, but even back then, being a small person with a small beginning book, I wasn't finding what would be a true agent. I was finding people like, yes, for $5,000 up front, you can do this and this and that. And, that's what we're going to be discussing today. So,
yeah, well, first off, let's just talk about what basically an agent is. So that for those who are listening, if you're not familiar what an actual agent is, an agent is basically that middleman. We've talked about middlemans, we've talked about agents and how they work in different parts of the writing process, kind of getting to the point if you want to be a traditionally published author. So they're not necessary technically if you are not going the traditional route. So this is for those trying to seek the traditional route. You need an agent to get in that front door to be able to even be sought out by a publishing company.
And I can understand that with the big publishing companies because they have thousands of submissions every year.
It's not a guarantee. So that's another thing you have to ahead of time know in your brain that just because I have an agent does not guarantee I'm getting published.
Correct.
And so an agent is a professional avenue, essentially, a professional person who is the middleman to get your book ready to present to a publishing house. To be able to go the traditional route, which means they're getting it ready in its best sellable form that they feel like they can offer to a publishing house. And there's different levels. Like there's some agents that are only focused on certain types of writing. So, when we go through this, there are ones that are children's agents. There are ones for graphic novels. There are ones for fiction that's specifically like fantasy, fiction that's specifically like erotica. So you got to know what agent you're seeking. You almost have to do like that whole research route that we've always talked about to know which avenue you're taking. Because if you submit to an agent that's not even looking for that kind of thing, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, I mean, and there are the good things about them too, because if you really believe in your book, you're like, I know it's going to be a New York Times bestseller and I want it in every store. An agent can come in handy. It kind of reminds me of back in the day with record companies. They don't accept unsolicited material. So you can send in your demo and they're going to throw it to the side. But I'm sure with some agents who have a rapport with certain publishing companies or people at the publishing company, if they believe in your book and they sign you, then they are going to be able to say, hey, I really need you to take a look at this book. Now, you could submit it yourself, but it'll probably end up on a pile, and you'll be down on a stack of 100 instead of having that middleman present it to that publisher.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They're gonna give you. They're kind of like your sidekick, your what's the wingman? Your wingman to a publishing company. They're sure to help you with the contract. What?
I can't remember Chris Farley, Wingies. I like Wingies. I don't know if you remember that movie from the 90s.
What movie was that?
Black Sheep. I think it was Black Sheep.
Yeah, I'm sure my husband's watched it.
Like Wingy. Yeah. He'll watch this. He'll be like, Jamie, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, Gary, he always knows what you're talking about because
we're both immature like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, no. Because I wasn't a huge Chris Farley fan.
I was. But I mean, I get it. He's an acquired taste. There's a lot of we'll get off topic, but I think of other actors. I'm like, why does everybody like that comedian so much? I don't like him. But
Well, and the thing is, there were some things I liked him in, but it wasn't like, oh man, I got to watch everything that Chris Farley does. I mean, and that's the thing. I like Adam Sandler movies, but I'm not seeking that. I'll watch them and I'll be like, oh, I watched them once. But like my husband and my daughters, they'll watch things over and over again. I'm like, that's not my thing.
Certain movies with me, like Waterboy, Joe Dirt, Deuce Bigelow, Mel Gigolo, the first one. Well, I like the second one too. I like
Dirt was an Adam Sandler movie.
Well, no, but I mean, they're all in that area. Like Adam Sandler's worked with a lot of them, so a lot of them are like on Happy Madison Productions. I'm pretty sure Joe Dirt was. I didn't like the second Joe Dirt movie, but let's get back to the topic, or my squirrels will take off and we'll be talking about something else.
Right.
I need an ADHD agent.
Right. You do. JDHD. All right, so basically, like we had said, they kind of play a crucial role in your publishing process. And a lot of people don't realize that your agent is going to pre-edit your stuff. It's not like you submit and then they take what you have and then they go sell it. We've talked about this previously in episodes where they will take and they'll kind of do their own revisions. Like, hey, this is a really good start, but we're going to suggest maybe you do this before I go and sell it. You know what I mean? They're going to kind of rework your work before it even gets to the publishing company, who's also going to rework your work after that fact. So be prepared for that. We did do an episode on basically how to get an agent or how to acquire one when we talked about query letters, synopsis, and all that stuff, because you have to understand how to write a query letter before you get an agent, because typically they have algorithms that are set in place. Read their instructions and what they're asking for. Are they asking for a query letter and a synopsis? Are they asking for a query letter and a summary? So knowing what they're asking for is going to be a key element, and being able to even have your email read by them, and also understand what they're looking for. Like I just recently mentioned, was know what types of books they want to promote. Like look at some of the people. I remember when I was in that mindset, like I want to be traditionally published. It's like, go hard or go home. And I was sending query letters out. And when I was doing this, I was researching and I was looking for the agents for certain types of authors. Who do you publish? Is your book comparable to mine? And finding what are they looking for? And I got feedback on a couple of them, but nothing that was promising.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much work involved too, and that's why. I mean, you're like, if you I got a fantasy book and I found 3 agents I know I'm going to get signed. That's not necessarily true. They also, just like a publishing company, get submissions probably daily, and if you write a really good query letter and your summary and everything's on point and you can pull them in because that's what you want to do, then yeah, you may get signed. If that's the route you want to go. Again, like Karisa said, if you're self-publishing, if you're working with a smaller publishing company such as Vendera, you may not necessarily need an agent.
Yeah, and so this kind of, I thought about this morning, and without naming a name, because I don't want to mention her name, we spoke to someone recently that has an agent, but their agent isn't doing anything for them. So you've got to be very careful. You're sitting there and you're not producing work that you feel like, I think this would actually get out there. You need to look over your contract. Like, can you go self-publish if they kind of turn no, the industry's not looking for this. Wait a minute, how do you know that? Maybe, I would tread lightly with getting an agent that doesn't push your work or doesn't give you positive feedback or doesn't send work your way.
I got to be honest. That's how I felt when she was saying that, because I'm like, if I went that route, I had an agent and I'm signing, they best believe in me. And I don't want to be pigeonholed to like, oh, you know what? I got this great idea. No, that's not what they're looking for. It's like you said, really? Well, then can I go ahead and self-publish it because you're not helping me? And that's what we signed up for. So when that book blows up and I'm making millions, don't you come around saying I need my 10-20% because you had nothing to do with it.
Well, and that was, I feel like that was kind of like, I know someone that has an agent and they recommend me and the agent picked me up. The agent didn't pick you up because you submitted work. They picked you up based on, a friend of a friend. So now anything you give them is not a guaranteed, originally was interested in your work. Be very careful because maybe they just have you on there as kind of like, well, if they make something, I'll make something off of
Yeah,
it.
and then what's in that fine print? So if they're like, yeah, I'm not going to push this, and you do
Hmm.
self-publish, did you sign something that if you do, then they get a percentage of that, even though they had
Right.
nothing to do with it?
Right. And that's another thing, is understanding what your rights are with your work. What work do they have rights to? And how long is your contract? How can you get out of the contract? Like, hey, I'm going to get out of the contract, but then I can't publish anything for 6 months. What are your rights as an author? Because if you keep submitting stuff and they're like, yeah, this is what the industry wants, and you're like, and the next thing you know, guess what? The industry just blew up with what you just had. So you just lost out on that. So I'm a firm believer in like trusting yourself. Like, even, I don't know, like I feel like I could submit work. If you don't want that work, that's fine. But like if I have you under contract and you've not published anything of mine, I feel like, what am I doing? Are you like,
Karissa, it's the same. I mean, this was before COVID, but I've really seen even the record industry change since COVID. And I'm like, I know big artists that are now putting out singles. They're like, why put out a freaking album? It's not selling. Or why sign with another record label when they're taking a big chunk of my publishing? I can
mhm,
make more money on my own. I mean, granted, there are, like I had a artist recently blow up, Megan Woods, with her song The Truth just came out, and it was #2 on iTunes, right below Eminem.
mm,
As of right now, as we're filming this, so who
right.
knows? She might like M off the top spot, but that'd be a tough that'd be a tough one. But
Yeah.
but #2 is still pretty good.
Hmm.
But she's comfortable with what she's with her record company. Now I see other artists that are making just as much as an indie artist. And they don't have a company or a major publishing company or a record company. So I think it's like she said, you got to follow your gut. What is your vision?
Hmm.
Do you really want to trust it in somebody's hand? I'm not trying to knock agents. I'm sure we'll have an
Oh
agent
no,
on here in
no,
the
no.
future to really dive deep into this. But when I tried and it didn't work out, and then publishing companies weren't interested, that's when I started Vendera Publishing.
Hmm.
Only meant to do my stuff, but then it just blew up. I had Elizabeth Sabine, Am McGee wanting to publish books. So I probably never went that you got to have an agent to submit to me route because of the bad taste I had in my mouth when I tried this
Yeah.
back in like 2002,
Well,
2003.
and it's a lot of, especially when we're kind of an indie hybrid type publishing. It's not necessarily so, because we're so small base, we don't have to worry about like needing to talk to someone to not talk directly to the author per se. Um, and that's the thing. One of the questions when I was doing some research about agents and that people ask is like, once I've self-published, can I seek an agent? And so typically it's usually not like a typical thing that happens. Most likely, an agent won't pick you up after you've self-published. However, it does happen every once in a while, especially if your sales are up. You're like, hey, I've, blah, blah, blah. You can almost use it as a selling point. You can try. There might be an agent out there like, you know what? This person's doing great as a self-published artist or author. I might be interested in getting them a little bigger deal. And you may have a little bit more wiggle room with like, hey, I've already got a book that's doing great, but I would like to maybe get traditionally published with the rest of the series. You may have that option.
I've seen that happen, and I can't remember her name, so I won't guess at it to screw it up. But this young girl did a lot of apocalyptic books back when Kindle was really exploding.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking over 10 years ago. And she got picked up by an agent. She was selling and doing so much, and that's all she did. She'd write
Mm-hmm.
5 or 10,000 words a day. She just kept going and going and going, doing great on her own. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
she became a self-made millionaire on her own,
Mm-hmm.
but an agent came along and the deal was even sweeter. So she
Right.
signed with them and they got
Yeah,
major publishing.
that doesn't happen very often, but like
No,
there are
it's rarity.
situations. Yeah, it's a rarity, but like typically it's not usually a literary agent's not typically looking to pick you up if you're already self-published because you've already got your work out there, and then they have to try and like essentially clean up the mess if there's
Yep.
a mess. You know, but again,
But they may come in afterwards. Like even if you start another series, that could be a possibility,
mm-hmm. Yep,
or using a pen
yeah,
name or something.
right. Well, you can always do like, I mean, it's always like, essentially someone picking up your second novel and then republishing kind of situation. All right. So I put on here in some of the notes, some of the drawbacks, which we've
Yep.
talked about a couple of them. But one of the common complaints, of course, is that the big five publishers have like the stronghold on this industry. where people think that's the only way they're going to get on the shelf. And that whole mentality, and we as human beings get that whole, like, the only way I can do this is the only way I can become successful, is like we have blinders on. We can't see the other path. Like, oh, if I self-publish, I'll never make anything. Or if I go with this smaller publishing company, no one's going to ever know my name. They're not going to give me out to anybody. So it's that whole, like, it's traditional or bust. And you will probably bust more likely than you will be successful if it doesn't work out.
And even if you did get signed, because you're typically, I've seen it as low as like 6 to 10% on what you make per book, with the publishers taking the huge claim. So if you did get signed,
the agent's cost.
Yeah, on top of that, yeah. So if you did get signed and you're like, okay, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? How do you know? I mean, you have to sell millions of books, where you'd only have to sell thousands of books if you're indie published. Yes, they may have the reach, but of course there's going to be marketing expenses, and even I've seen in your note, that's one thing. If that book doesn't come out strong, they're going to slash that marketing budget, and even at the end of the day, you're still paying for that.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Speaking of like marketing coming out the gate type situation, a lot of times publishers won't release until the gate is ready to be open. They will time it, and you may be like, my book's ready. My book's been ready. But they're like, no, this one doesn't need to be released until this date, and that might be like months to a year ahead of time.
Yep.
It's almost like how they release movies, or they,
it's the same thing. Yeah, same thing with music. I see it all the time. Even like the Megan song that just came out, it's been done for months. I mean, we worked on that song 6-8 months ago. Mm-hmm. Flat Black, a band I adore and love. Jason Hook, phenomenal guitar player. Rex Horton, one of my students, their singer. That album's been done for about 1.5 years. They've had 4 singles out. It's just now coming out, and I don't know when this episode will come out, but by the end of July 2024, that album will be released. Mm-hmm. Almost 18 months after it was done. Mm-hmm. So you never know. Timing is a weird thing. It's hurry up and wait in the creative industry.
Yeah. So one of the things that I personally found was when I was doing the agent thing, and this is just me speaking freely, this is not all agents, but sometimes there was a sense of arrogance with their feedback that you can't take to heart. Those people get a lot of submissions. So if an agent says, I'm not interested, or that your work isn't what I'm looking for, don't take it personally. Don't take it like, oh my gosh, they think don't give up on yourself as a writer. So sometimes they have that arrogance, that whole like forward, like what you have isn't what I want. They're not saying what you have sucks, because they know everything that gets submitted probably has some working room, potentially, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's like, this needs to go through a few more revisions.
Didn't that happen with Harry Potter in the beginning? She was having a rough time, and then I think Scholastic picked her up or something.
Yeah, I don't remember this. I do remember the story as far as something like that happening. Like they didn't believe in her, and then she went a different route, and it took off. And now it's kind of like, yeah, sometimes those big publishing companies don't see the future.
Correct.
They're seeing what's on trend. Trends change on the daily. Things like a trend will, like in a snap, will change. So you have to be careful that following the trend, which we've talked in previous episodes. Oh, if you like 50 Shades of Grey, if you like, Colleen Hoover, if you like those people, this is the next best thing. Yeah, but what if that person's no longer in trend? What if that person's now being like canceled? You probably don't want to be compared to them. So kind of stay in your lane that you are comfortable in and push forward, because eventually maybe your little trend is going to jump on track.
Yep. I remember when I was trending for like 2 days with the glass breaking. Then it was going, no, I'm joking.
You're hilarious.
So how much money do those agents make off of your sales?
Oh, sorry. Well, I want to go back to my notes. What does my notes say?
I know what it says. I'm just asking you.
Well, I wrote these notes. Why can't you read them?
All right. Agents generally are paid a fee of between 10 and 20% of sales that they help negotiate on behalf of the writer they represent.
Nice.
I was trying to do this thing, like, hey, I got a question.
I know what you're
Myers
doing.
Are darting down.
Taking a drink, though. I was taking a drink. I wasn't looking at the notes.
Okay, hold on.
Your drink is louder than mine. Oh my gosh.
And it's not Dr. Pepper.
Mine's Dr. Pepper Zero.
Oh
That was
yeah,
a
I'm telling
shameless
you,
plug.
is that like the only soda that tastes decent with no sugar, no calories?
No, Pepsi Zero is my favorite.
Really? I've never. Well, I don't drink a lot of Pepsi.
But I lie. I like Pepsi Zero, and I like it's probably a close. It's a close running for Dr. Pepper Zero Cream Soda.
Oh, I'll have to try that one. I don't drink a lot
That
of
one's really
soda,
good.
but I used to like way back when I used to work. Not the vocal coaching isn't work, but I used to work outside. Always diet Dr. Pepper, and to me,
Ooh,
very.
I like a diet.
Oh, it didn't even taste that much different to me.
Mm-mm.
Now,
I
my
can.
cousin used to drink Diet Mountain Dew, and I'd drink, I'd be
Mhm.
like, but if I would get stuck on that Diet Mountain Dew for a while and then go to regular Mountain Dew, it's like, ugh, it's too thick and syrupy.
Yeah, yeah. I
All
feel like
right.
they're plugging all these pops and it's what do you call them sodas?
Yeah, because that's a Southern thing, right?
I guess. Yeah, I call it pop.
Yes. I call it pop up here, too. I don't know
Soda.
what got me started on soda.
Mm. Yeah, probably you're traveling or whatever.
And some people just call it everything Coke. I need a Coke. And it could be a Pepsi, a Mountain Dew, a Dr. Pepper. So soda, pop, Coke, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
All right. Back on track.
yeah.
So we mentioned this little in the beginning here, like to be advised that you may have an amazing agent who completely believes in you. You get your manuscript in working order exactly the way they feel like it's going to be selling. You gotta realize they're kind of like a salesperson for your book. So they're gonna be like, hey, look at this. So you have to know that they may not get it to where a publisher even is interested. So another thing I feel like, depending on what your genre is, maybe seek out I don't know. I mean, this is a personal opinion. It'd be nice to get a seasoned one, but the problem with a seasoned agent, maybe they're too busy to kind of work you into their
Yeah.
stuff. So, like, a new agent would be great. The problem with the downfall of a new agent is they may not have their foot in the door with many publishing companies. You know what I mean? They may not have that negotiating terms, as far as like publishing companies may not understand or not understand. May not have a good working relationship with newer agents. You know, that has to, but I mean, it has to start somewhere. You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
I would shop around. I mean, like you said in the beginning, if you do some research and find for your book genre, you're going to find multiple agents, and you can review them and see what books they've helped get published with a major publishing company. Because at the end of the day, why do you want an agent? Because you want your book to blow up. You're wanting it on a major publishing company. You don't want to
It's not,
just
yeah,
throw
not
darts and see if
against
it
you though.
stick.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You kind of have to weigh that out. So there's no guarantee you're going to get an agent. They say the average time frame is about 4 years to get an agent and get picked up by a publishing company, if it's ever going to happen. That's the average. It's about 4 years of sitting there and waiting. Not only that, you get your agent, you may do a year or two of reworking, and then they have to try and sell it, and then you may get another year or two of reworking with a traditional publishing company, and then get your book. It just depends on how fast or how much they want to push your book, how quickly. You know what I mean? Is your book in complete order? Is it all? Is there maybe there's not very much to work on? Maybe your book is ready because you've listened to this podcast and you've taken all our notes.
Exactly. And you
And your
just
book.
skipped an agent and you came to us.
Yeah, yeah.
Bam.
You know what? Yeah, imagine if you were just like, you know what? I need an agent because I don't know where to start. You don't need an agent for that. Nice
Trying to
job.
put it down gently.
And I'll be so aggressive with those water bottles. Yeah, so your challenge might be, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to get to this point. 1, listen to all the previous episodes. 2, reach out to us, because even if you don't go with us, we're willing to help you and answer any questions that you may have. So that's another thing, is having someone who's willing to talk to you and walk you through it. Because that's how Jamie and I met. Whenever I messaged him, because my client from Virginia was like, I just name drop me. I'm best friends with his mom. Blah blah blah. And I was like, okay. And so I did, and I talked to Jamie, but I didn't want to do what Jamie wanted to do. So, but it was like a mutual respect. Like, hey, thank you for the time, but at the same time, he's like, hey, good luck to you. But if you would like to have an editor, here's my editor. And, like make sure when you're doing self-publishing, he was like giving me some advice. And so though I didn't take every piece of his advice, I appreciated the fact that he was willing to give it to me freely. And then when I went to do my second book, that's when I was like, hey, you had given me some advice on self-publishing. Do you got any more tips? Because I felt like it was extremely expensive for me and I would like to take a better route. And that's how we kind of like got into our relationship with publishing but it's always been that whole like back and forth, even though I'm not going to be a part of this journey with you, let me help you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually glad you stuck to your guns too, because my mentality at the time too was thinking monetarily, how can we make you money? And, with Kindle the way it was going at that time and with the movie books I was doing, I was talking about 120 page books. I'm like, you got a 400 page book. Why don't we break it up into thirds and you have 3 books?
Yeah.
But that sometimes doesn't make sense. And even like you said, Rich, when he got into editing it, he's like, yeah, I don't agree with what Jamie said, and that's fine,
Yeah,
So
well, because I mean, I didn't write it to have sub breaks. I wrote it to have one like cliffhanger at the end. So had I wrote it that way, maybe I would have thought, oh yeah, I could do that. So, but I had sat for a while trying to get an agent, before I'd even decided to I'm like, oh yeah, because when you write that book, you're like, oh, this is a winner. This is great. No one's done this. This is going to be the best selling book. You have that mentality, which is rightfully so. You should be that proud of your work always. You should always be that happy with your work, but always be prepared that someone else may not see the beauty and time that you spent into that. And they may start giving you some constructive criticism, not to tear you down, but to build you up. And an agent's going to do that. An agent is definitely going to do that, but they're also going to ask for money for it. Like, I'm going to help you, but I'm going to.
Absolutely. So
if you have an agent currently and your agent's not doing anything for you, you may need to rework your contract and be like, can I get out of it? And maybe I need to self-publish, or maybe I need to look at a different avenue, readdress what you're actually seeking to do as an author.
Definitely read that contract, because I mean, if you write another series, do you have to submit everything through them? Because if you're like, I'm tied into this agent for a while, I can't get out of it. They don't want to publish. They don't want to push this fiction idea I had. Do you have the rights to go ahead and self-publish? And another thing, like we've done discussed throughout this. That way, you're not sitting on something for years. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, what'd you say?
I said that way you're not sitting on a book for years. You could have this great idea, like you said, they shoot you down. You're like, oh, well, you could be writing it and self-publishing and making money, but of course you don't want that agent to get a part of that if they haven't lifted a finger, and that's why you got to read that contract.
I don't know if you can hear this, but my cat is literally knocking on the door trying to get in. I pushed her out, and she keeps like
I can't hear it over this.
And so one of the things when we're done with this episode, stay on for 2 minutes, because I wanted to tell you something, but I didn't want to do it live on the episode because
I was going to stay on anyway because I got other ideas. Yeah, and then you're leaving for Europe, so I won't see you for a week.
Yes, this episode will air obviously after the fact, but at the same time, I'm so excited. I leave tonight. I'm gonna be out. I'm gonna be journeying, and we're gonna go see Phantom of the Opera.
And they're going over here to see Misfits. Oh no, I mean Taylor Swift. I couldn't remember. Yeah, I know it was one of those. I know it was either Glenn Danzig or Taylor Swift.
Yeah. The whole family's going, but only 2 of us are going to go see the Eras tour. So
yeah, I think your hubby's going to go watch like Deuce Bigalow, Mel Gigolo, like in one of those theaters over there.
No, okay. No. I booked a tour for him, and the ones who are not going to the Eras tour, they're going to go do the Beatles double-decker tour bus. It's like a 3-hour tour.
That's cool.
And they're going to go to like Strawberry Fields. They're going to go to the little bar where the Beatles performed. They're going to go see where John Lennon lived. Like all these little cool locations in Liverpool. So,
that's cool.
Yeah. So anyways, all right. So this has kind of been a great episode on just the basics of, do I need an agent? You need to like search your personal author self and decide, where do you want your book? How long do you want it to sit there? Do you really need an agent, or are there ways that you could do without an agent? We're not dissing agents. We're telling you these are the breaks if you do an agent, if you don't do an agent. So don't look at it like we're trying to discourage you from that, because that may be the route you want to take. And if you have questions, we're here for you. How to write those letters, how to get that stuff out there. So if you're on that mode of like, okay, what do I do? You can reach out to us at allwayswritepodcast@gmail.com. You can also find different ways to listen to us and follow us on our social media by going to allwayswritepodcast.com. Click the little icons there and you can follow us, you can share us, and we really appreciate that. So, nose itching. I was trying to, like, my nose was itching that whole time. I was like trying
Well,
not
I
to.
thought that when I seen you doing that, I figured if I did this, it'd be a perfect screenshot for for Instagram.
That's
But it'd be like, ew. No.
It's funny. All right. Well, we really appreciate you listening. And as always, I'm author Karisa DeLay.
And I'm author Jaime Vendera, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening, and always write.